Welcome to the Time of the Reason podcast show. We're not looking for ratings. We are not here to support and to create sensationalism. We are not here to entertain. We are here to give due diligence to the pressing human, economic, environmental, political, and social issues that affect humankind. We are here to promote thinking. Now, more than ever, is the time to revive reason. Unless we do so, humankind is riding a one-way runaway train into oblivion. Think about it. We must think. Thank you for listening again to another episode of the Time of the Reason podcast show. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of the Time of the Reason podcast show. We used to be Mind Matters, where your mind does matter, and I'm here with my co-host and partner in conversational crime, Dan Ploger, engineer by trade and combat veteran by no choice, by politics, right? We're going to talk today about this phenomenon that's on the World Wide Web. It's been going on for a while, but there's been a proliferation of it in the last decade or so, the social media platforms. And we're calling it today the social media frenzy. We're going to dissect what it really is, what we think it is, what we've witnessed, and maybe some things we can do to shift the tide. I don't know, Dan, maybe it's too late, but we have this human desire, and you can look it up. I'm not a PhD by any stretch of the imagination or medical doctor, a psychiatrist, but we have this thing called the ego that Freud brought out, right? And the human desire for acceptance and approval. We're always looking for somebody to approve the things that we do or to accept us as we am. Whoever we are. It's a fact. And in the past, even in pecking order through college, I did some of the dumbest things with my fraternity brothers just to be accepted. I mean, stuff today that would look like Mickey Mouse, with what we see on the internet today. But so now we have the internet. I don't know, it's really become popular the last couple of decades, and we have these platforms, or what we've called this social media playground, the internet playground, where people are going on and they are doing just things that are way over the top and bizarre, things we would have never considered. And there's a lot of people that believe that these social media platforms have led to the decline of the human being mental health on a global level. People will go out of their way to do the stupidest things to become an influencer. What's the next viral thing? And it's no longer about real creation. It's about absurdity, and sometimes even a display of criminality that nothing seems to be done. Well, I can outdo that. We can go into a store and break in and with a sledgehammer and steal stuff and put it out there on the internet. And boy, look at us. Or I can be a transgender. I can be a guy thinking I'm a woman and put on all my rouge and just say stupid, ridiculous things and become an influencer overnight and get paid for it. We can get paid for this mental health or this criminality, and it seems like nobody's doing anything about it. So I don't want to go on and on and on. We're here for conversation. Dan, can you give us some perspective on what you think is going on with this social media frenzy? And the subtitle here behind me, influencers are us. Of course, it's in a barcode because we become, a product, if you will. So,
code.
Yeah. So, what's going on with the social media frenzy, and what has the World Wide Web done to humankind? What's going on here?
Hey, there's a question for you. As I've said before, John, I don't think that many people really understand what's going on. But what we're seeing is, for the first time in human history with this, we've got the ability to communicate are either our most intimate thoughts or our most braggadocious thoughts, we can instantly communicate to anyone who's interested in seeing worldwide at zero cost. It doesn't cost anything to speak of, your subscriptions and so on. But in effect, information delivery is free. So we don't know, this is the first time in mankind's anthropological history that we've ever been in this situation where information is free. And I don't think the human race knows exactly how to deal with it. But we do know that also that these are the communications that you see exercised on the social media platforms are not organic by any means. What you're reading is contrived, and there are algorithms that are pushing certain lines of thinking or certain posts or what, and that is what we mistakenly view as likes, and it might not be a like necessarily. It might be just that somebody viewed, but we have then mistaken these likes for something of value, and it has no value. There is no value to it. Looking at a flash mob bust up a jewelry store. There's no value to that. There's probably can be argued and probably measured. There's some negative value that goes with that. But we're being manipulated by algorithms that we don't understand. We don't know the author of the algorithm. We do not know what the algorithm says, but we do know some of the results. You get a reaction from your audience as to what you post. So you're driven by that, and not necessarily what is good or what is wise or what is wholesome, but you're driven by what is viewed and not even liked. I look at a lot of things that I don't like on the internet, and I'm sure that I register as a view, and somebody considers that a silver star. So we've got we've got difficulty in conflicts with what we consider a value and what we don't consider a value.
Yeah, those are some great perspectives. I was thinking when I was coming along with my friends, high school and even in college, our ambitions were to be something in society where we might or could give back. It was the way we were raised. We were raised with a value set that you bring up. And so, some guys wanted to be doctors, and some of my friends went on to do it. Some people wanted to be dentists and school teachers, and you name it. Most of the people that I hung with had that desire, that ambition to give back to society. Now what I hear and I see, you talk about things of no value, but I hear these young kids really with no life experience, and their whole desire is to find something that could go viral, on the internet, that somehow, they could come up with something that has absolutely no value, but to themselves, but somehow it's perceived because of the number of likes that it does have value. So, back in the day, Vincent van Gogh would paint a painting, or, CC Cummings would write a poem, or, they would make a movie like Gone with the Wind or Ben-Hur. The media had real value culturally, socially, messaging. And now it seems like there's this push to search for something that could go viral. So rather than put anything out of any quality, maybe it's just something that's apt stupidity, looking for those likes or those reactions that the people that make the algorithms can manipulate to not only fund them for stupid acts of maybe criminal violence or mental illness issues. And that's there's no real creations anymore, it seems like. And even Disney, we talked about this the other day. What's Disney doing but going back, taking classic cartoons with awesome messaging and an historical reference point of when it was made, and they're remaking these cartoons to fit the narrative of today's stuff that has no value, and they're destroying themselves. I think, well, that's, I don't want to digress, but we talk about value. So, what are your thoughts on that, Dan, about the creation of something of value?
Well, if there's any truth I've learned in my life, and that is that value sells. Everybody appreciates value, and value is what people use as judgment when they're shopping, when they're online. It's about value, which is very simply defined for those engineers in the audience. It's simply a fraction of the benefits divided by the cost. And laymen know this as bang for the buck. But this is what really sells. And so you have to provide some benefit to the audience that exceeds the cost of the audience. Well, what's the audience's cost? It's the time. So you're measuring something has been produced on the internet over a period of time. So what if the cost is nothing, then the value is infinite.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't. The problem is that people's time is not zero. It's worth something, and so this is what you're measuring against, and what you're achieving when you're on the social media is you're not selling. You're not selling wisdom. You're not selling. Sometimes you think you're selling ideas, but you're selling entertainment, and that's a rough racket to be in. Uh, ask Brad Pitt. I bet he'll tell you some horror stories about from the day after that he decided he wanted to be an actor. So entertainment's a tough business, and it's not a place for rookies. So everybody on the internet is a rookie, and the algorithms are made to convince those participants that there really is some entertainment value in what they're saying, when indeed there's not.
So we could say, for instance, that these people, these influencers, in today's social media world, frenzy world, are they're not really authentic creators. They're more like amateur miners, and not minor in age, but like data miners, or for the people that run these platforms. And that's the sense that I get, because you don't see, quality's quality. And when you live in a world where people will throw tomato soup on a Rembrandt, there's something wrong with the society that wants to destroy the history of the past and things that are so beautiful that we can actually use them as a direct reflection of what was going on in humankind's history at that time. But anyhow, one thing, and I want to digress here because I want to get your thoughts on this, because we understand, we know about TikTok, and you can find some of the craziest criminal mental health issue exploitation videos on TikTok. And we also understand that TikTok has a parent company that's run by the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, right? And they've been trying to get TikTok away from them. Is it possible, when we talk about information, now we know the answer, but I want the listeners to think about it. There's many people that think in America and a lot of the freer countries around the world that there's this global Marxist cultural war going, and that there's the front of propaganda that's being used or found on these platforms in social media. When we think of algorithms and we think about the destruction of a society, that the easiest way to do it is through mass propaganda and through the younger generations and the leaders of tomorrow. And when you look at the value sets from when we came along, and the value sets, we wanted to be something or somebody to give back to society. We weren't looking for the next viral stupid act. You know what I mean? So is it possible in this info world that nefarious players have gotten a hold of it to manipulate and to destroy cultures that they would deem their enemies?
Hmm.
Uh, Deep question. It's kind of a digression, but when we think about Facebook in particular and Twitter before Elon Musk owned it, and we think about who were on those boards, they weren't members of the Communist Chinese Party, but they were ex-CIA and FBI, and we just wonder how this influencer world is being manipulated. And all I can think of is it's destroying culture.
Well, that may be the result. Um, and I think that your accuracy in describing it, that there is definitely some destructive and perhaps just lacking any constructive value uh, to them. So, uh, I think that this is something mankind's going to have to wait out, I think, to find the answer to some of these questions that you're raising, John. Uh, Obviously, the Chinese Communist Party thinks that information about our children is worth the financial investment. So that ought to give your audience something to think about. Um, and I don't know that there's much that we can do at this point about the flood of information and the fact that information is free and that misinformation is free and disinformation is free for that matter. So we live in a different world that I think, again, it's anthropological. I think that humanity will look back on our times and probably explain a lot of the self-delusional uh, exercises that we're going through, like the trans movement and what have you, and maybe finally recognize that as just a result of the dysfunction of our understanding of value and our understanding in time and our understanding of information.
Yeah, great points. You made me think of something. Some of the people that have even developed these platforms. I know that there was a movie out. If you can get a hold of it, it's probably on Netflix, or it's called The Social Dilemma, and it was a documentary made by people in the social media, internet, website, World Wide Web world, who actually discussed the dangers and the things that they had seen and had experienced in the development of these tools. And in fact, what I found, one of the amazing things in that was how some of these people were not even allowing their own children to have cell phones or have accounts on these social media platforms. And I found that pretty interesting. So, even in some books that I've read, Jerome, can't think of his last name right now, but he was the guy that helped develop
Mm.
virtual reality.
Yeah,
Um,
the guy with the big dreadlocks.
yeah, big dreadlocks, very, very smart guy. He plays like 1,000 musical instruments, which is takes a lot of brain power. But he was even saying, along with many others in the field, take 6 months off from social media. Just, put it down in a calendar, in a journal, and take 6 months off. And at the end of 6 months, if your life has not improved by not being on social media, then go back to it. But every single one of these people that were telling you to be careful and giving us caution, they all basically said that just to abstain from it for a while. This fear of missing out, where you got to be on your cell phone or your PC every 5 minutes to check what's going on with your social media account. And it becomes so transparent. Every single one of us has seen something in our networks, somebody who's on there constantly. And I'm thinking, if somebody's on social media all day long, they don't have a life. And so maybe it's time to get a life. If you're a social media influencer that's putting out nothing of value, we understand making money. But don't you think there's better ways to make money, especially if you're giving humankind something of value? I mean, there's a certain exhilaration in that, or certain I'm at a loss for the word. when you do something that's good and you feel really good about it because you know you've done something that people can learn something from, or I don't
Fulfillment.
know.
Fulfillment.
Fulfillment, that's the word. Yeah, fulfillment. There's a fulfillment. If you're just throwing a bunch of paint on a canvas like Hunter Biden, and you're putting it out there, and friends of your father are purchasing these pieces of shit artwork for $500,000. Where's the fulfillment in that? It would seem to me that it just feeds his mental illness and addiction issues. But think about how you would feel if you could actually sit down and paint a masterpiece. That's real art. Or write a novel, or pen a poem, or something that actually reflects something of real value. I mean, if you've got to go out and do a flash mob and rob, Pierre Cardin store or whatever it is, the Chanel, and steal $500,000 worth of handbags, then I will pray for you, because that, in a karmic sense, can only lead to one place. And trust me, it's not good. Um, any thoughts, Dan, on the solutions? Mine is abstinence, but I would like, if you're still listening, go to this YouTube channel and like the channel, right? So, but no, at the risk of being a hypocrite, I don't care if you like it or not. I really don't. I just hope you get something to value out of Dan in my conversation. But any thoughts, Dan, on the solution?
Well, we have to remember that today's currency is not wisdom, it's likes. And, that's what is the real value? What's the conversion rate of likes to the American dollar? Uh, that's not well established. And I think that might be part of what we're dealing.
Well, with Dan saying that, then I'm going to take back what I just said. Don't like us. Do not like the Time of the Reason podcast show. In fact, you can hate us if you want.
Oh, did I lose my job?
No. But the truth will set you free. And it's funny how when you speak the truth, or the truth comes out, how many people will point fingers, how many people will censor you, want to cancel you, ridicule you. And we've heard that before. The truth can sometimes hurt, but those that embrace it and accept it are the people that can become great pieces of society, great parts to it. And that's all I can say. So go ahead, Dan. What was that?
Masterpieces. Piece of society become a masterpiece.
Awesome. So become a masterpiece. You
Right.
don't have to be an influencer. And if you are an influencer, influence with something of value. We don't want to see mental health at its lowest state.
Something that can be passed on. And that's the trouble with the entertainment business. It has a value in the present, but its enduring value it definitely lacks. And I think anybody in the industry will attest to that. So, John, I don't know the answers to these things, but they sure are fun to think about, and you make me think. So I appreciate it.
Well, there you go. You make me think too. And I want to thank those listeners and viewers, that keep coming back, that like what we talk about. Maybe you don't like what we talk about. So if you like us, like us. If you don't, don't. And don't just do it because you think you have to. I know it's the Christmas time of the year, and these things run forever. I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah. Whatever it is you practice this time of the year, be grateful, be giving, and think about your fellow man or woman and how you can add value and be a masterpiece. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Time of the Reason podcast show. Now it's time to think. Logic and reason work. It's only common sense. Do your part.